December 1944, Camp Shanks, New York. The German military cook stared at the American officer in disbelief, certain he had misunderstood the man's English. "Wiederholen Sie, bitte?" he asked. The American repeated the order slowly. "Your new assignment is to prepare meals for the female German prisoners arriving tomorrow." The cook, Unteroffizier Karl Schmidt, a veteran of Rommel's Africa Corps captured in Tunisia, had endured 18 months of American captivity with his professional pride intact. But this request violated every principle of his military training. In the Wehrmacht, men did not serve women. Officers did not serve enlisted personnel. And certainly, military cooks did not serve female auxiliaries. Across American POW camps that winter, similar scenes unfolded as military authorities reassigned 124 captured German military cooks to prepare meals for approximately 7,500 German women auxiliaries, Nachrichtenhelferinnen and Flakhelferinnen, captured in France, Belgium, and Italy. These women, trained in communications and anti-aircraft operations, had never expected to become prisoners of war, much less to be served by male military personnel who outranked them in the rigid German hierarchy. The American decision reflected pragmatic efficiency rather than cultural warfare. Camp authorities determined that German-speaking cooks familiar with traditional food preferences would minimize waste and maximize nutrition. Yet this practical choice struck at the foundation of Nazi gender ideology more effectively than any propaganda film. Wehrmacht training manuals from 1941, recovered from a captured German officer, explicitly forbade male military personnel from serving female auxiliaries, who were expected to manage their own kitchens under male supervision. Unteroffizier Schmidt had graduated from the Wehrmacht's culinary school in Dresden, where he spent 6 months learning to prepare elaborate officers' meals and simple field rations from limited ingredients. His instructors emphasized the German military food hierarchy. Officers received meat daily, NCOs every other day, enlisted men twice weekly. Women auxiliaries, who ate in separate facilities, received 15% smaller rations by official regulation, a scientific calculation supposedly reflecting their lesser physical needs. American abundance had already confounded German cooks. Camp Shanks' weekly provisions for 1,500 prisoners included 6,300 pounds of meat, 9,000 eggs, 1,800 pounds of butter, and 7,500 pounds of potatoes. These quantities exceeded what many cooks had handled in months of field service. The quality surpassed what German officers consumed even at headquarters. Now these cooks faced not just abundance, but a complete inversion of their professional universe. "Impossible," Schmidt told the kitchen sergeant in carefully practiced English. "German men do not cook for Helferinnen." The American sergeant, a restaurant chef from Detroit before the war, shrugged. "In America, men cook for whoever's hungry. You'll get used to it." Quartermaster records from December 1944 document the initial resistance. At Camp Shanks, 3 German cooks refused the assignment and were reassigned to laundry duty. 4 others accepted but deliberately overcooked vegetables and served unappetizing presentations. By week's end, however, 117 of 124 reassigned cooks were performing their duties professionally, if reluctantly. The women's imminent arrival created tension throughout the camp. German male prisoners, living in relative isolation for months or years, reacted with emotions ranging from excitement to anxiety. Military discipline had eroded in captivity. Many had adopted casual American habits, open collars, relaxed posture, informal speech. Now they debated whether to resume military formality for their countrywomen, unsure which approach would maintain dignity in this unprecedented situation. Schmidt finally accepted the inevitable. That evening, he reviewed the standard American camp menu, converting unfamiliar measurements from pounds to kilograms. The ingredients for the women's first meal awaited in the storeroom: eggs, bacon, toast, jam, oatmeal, fresh milk, and coffee with real sugar. In Germany, civilians hadn't seen such a breakfast since before the war. He wondered how the women would react to this abundance, served by men who should, by all military tradition, be their superiors. Tomorrow would reveal whether German military discipline could withstand this peculiarly American form of cultural disruption, disguised as simple practicality. January 1945. The transport ships docked at New York Harbor carried an unexpected cargo. 267 German women in military uniforms, part of the first major contingent of female German prisoners to reach American shores. The Helferinnen, young women aged 18 to 27 who had served as communication specialists, radar operators, and administrative personnel, stood on deck, their faces showing exhaustion from the 2-week Atlantic crossing. Unlike male prisoners who had anticipated possible capture, these women had been told they would be evacuated before enemy forces arrived. That promise, like so many others from Berlin, had proven empty when American forces overran their communications bunker near Aachen in November 1944. Military records confirm that by war's end, Allied forces captured approximately 7,500 German female auxiliaries, with 3,129 transported to America for internment. These women represented the hidden machinery of the Wehrmacht, maintaining telephone switchboards, decoding messages, plotting aircraft movements, and maintaining personnel records. Though non-combatants by Geneva Convention standards, their critical military functions justified their classification as prisoners of war rather than civilian internees. The Helferin program, initiated in 1939, had grown from 13,000 women to over 450,000 by 1944, releasing men for combat as the war expanded across multiple fronts. The women disembarking at Camp Shanks carried small suitcases containing their possessions, military-issued toiletries, spare uniforms, a few photographs, and letters from home. Unlike male prisoners, who often arrived in ragged battlefield uniforms, the Helferinnen wore the standardized grey-blue uniforms of the Wehrmacht Auxiliary Corps, complete with insignia indicating their specialized training. American military police noted their disciplined formation as they marched from the dock to waiting transport trucks, a stark contrast to the disorganized columns of male prisoners who had arrived previously. At the camp, Unteroffizier Schmidt and 11 other German cooks watched nervously from the kitchen windows as the women arrived. "They look like proper German soldiers," one cook observed with surprise. "I expected them to be disheveled." Schmidt nodded. The Helferinnen's military bearing complicated his mental preparation. He had convinced himself that serving these women wouldn't violate military protocol because they weren't real soldiers. Their disciplined appearance challenged this convenient rationalization. Camp authorities had designated a separate compound for the women, following Geneva Convention requirements for gender-segregated facilities. American Women's Army Corps personnel would supervise the barracks, but German male prisoners would staff the kitchens, laundry, and administrative offices. This arrangement, unthinkable in German military organization, reflected American pragmatism and resource allocation rather than ideological engineering, though its psychological impact would prove profound. The first meal service created palpable tension. American guards positioned themselves discreetly, uncertain what would happen when German men served German women. According to first-hand accounts collected by Army intelligence officers, the women entered the dining hall in formation, led by Oberhelferin Margarete Weber, formerly Chief Communications Officer at a Luftwaffe headquarters in Belgium. They stood at attention until Weber gave permission to be seated. Schmidt and his kitchen staff emerged with breakfast trays, their faces carefully neutral. Weber spoke first. "Danke, Unteroffizier," acknowledging Schmidt's rank before accepting her tray. This small courtesy, recognizing military hierarchy, visibly relieved the cooks. Other women followed her example, addressing the servers by rank. The expected humiliation transformed into an awkward but dignified exchange. Post-meal interviews conducted by Army intelligence revealed the complexity of this cultural collision. "I never imagined being served by a Wehrmacht NCO," one Helferin admitted. "In Germany, we prepared our own meals in separate facilities." Another noted, "The men seem embarrassed, but they are professional. The food is better than anything we had in Germany for years. Schmidt's private diary, later donated to the Army Military History Institute, recorded his evolving perspective. These women maintain military discipline despite captivity. Perhaps they deserve the respect of proper service after all. This grudging acknowledgement marked the beginning of a subtle but significant shift in his understanding of military value and gender roles, a transformation that American authorities had neither planned nor anticipated, but would soon recognize and encourage. February 1945. Camp Shanks's kitchen hummed with activity as Schmidt consulted a thick binder of American recipes. The instructions called for quantities that seemed absurd: 6 eggs per cake, when German civilian rations allowed 1 egg per person monthly. American nutritional guidelines required that female prisoners receive 2,900 calories daily, including 85 grams of protein. This exceeded what German officers received on active duty and was nearly double the rations allocated to German civilian women at home. "They want us to serve meat twice daily," Schmidt told his assistant, Gefreiter Hans Müller, formerly a pastry chef at Berlin's Hotel Adlon. "German women never eat so much meat." Müller nodded while carefully measuring butter, 230 grams per cake, more than a German civilian's monthly butter ration. "American women must be giants," he replied, only half joking. The kitchen staff faced practical challenges beyond cultural bewilderment. American flour behaved differently from German varieties, producing softer bread. Milk came fresh daily rather than powdered. Coffee was real, not the ersatz barley brew they'd drunk since 1941. Vegetables arrived fresh or frozen, not dehydrated. Adapting German recipes to these ingredients required experimentation and waste that contradicted their wartime training. Camp records document the weekly provisions allocated for the women's mess: 840 pounds of meat, 1,680 eggs, 210 pounds of butter, 560 quarts of milk, and 70 pounds of coffee. These quantities for just 267 women exceeded what entire German military companies received in combat. The abundance itself became a form of culture shock. Schmidt's diary recorded his confusion. "These Americans expect us to feed our Helferinnen like factory workers. They claim women need equal nutrition to men. Their doctors insist on fresh fruit daily. Our own military nutritionists determined female auxiliaries require 15% less food than male soldiers of equal activity. Which science is correct?" American military authorities observed the cultural collision with interest. Captain Eleanor Reynolds, a nutritionist with the Women's Army Corps assigned to monitor the women's health, reported, "German female prisoners arrive with visible nutritional deficiencies despite their privileged military status. Many show signs of vitamin C deficiency and calcium insufficiency. German male cooks initially resist serving excessive portions to women, believing it wasteful and inappropriate. They require regular reminders that American nutritional standards apply equally regardless of gender." The women's reaction to this abundance created further confusion. Helga Kleinschmidt, a radar operator captured near Metz, recalled in a 1977 interview, "I felt guilty eating so well while knowing my family faced hunger in Stuttgart. Yet refusing food seemed ungrateful. The strangest part was watching male officers serve us without complaint. In Germany, such role reversal was unthinkable." Cultural tension peaked during the third week when Schmidt prepared sauerbraten following his mother's recipe, adapted to the richer American beef. The women's enthusiastic response, many requesting second servings, visibly pleased the kitchen staff, creating an unexpected moment of pride. For the first time, their service felt like a contribution rather than a humiliation. Captain Reynolds noted the shifting dynamics. Meal quality improved markedly once the German cooks began viewing their work as maintaining morale rather than servicing inferiors. The power of shared cultural foods to bridge status differences cannot be overstated. By month's end, routine replaced awkwardness. Oberhelferin Weber established a rotating schedule of women to assist with kitchen preparation, not from necessity, but as acknowledgement of the cook's efforts. This voluntary cooperation, documented in camp administrative records, marked a significant departure from German military protocol, where duties remained strictly segregated. Schmidt's perspective evolved gradually. "These women endure captivity with dignity," he wrote. "They maintain their stations, yet adapt to American ways more readily than we do." Perhaps this pragmatism deserves respect. This grudging acknowledgement revealed how daily interaction systematically undermined years of ideological training. Without explicit re-education lectures, the simple act of men serving women 3 meals daily accomplished what American propaganda films could not, demonstrating that competence and dignity transcended rigid gender hierarchies. The kitchen became an accidental laboratory for social reconfiguration, using spatulas and serving spoons rather than political manifestos. March 1945. The scent of yeast and cinnamon filled the Camp Shanks kitchen as Schmidt supervised the preparation of traditional Easter bread. 2 months earlier, he would have considered this labor beneath his professional dignity. Now he worked alongside 3 Helferinnen volunteers, showing them how to braid the dough into proper Ostersopf. "My grandmother's recipe called for 12 eggs per loaf," he explained, demonstrating the kneading technique. "In the military kitchens, we used 4. Here, the Americans give us 8. Not perfect, but acceptable." Oberhelferin Weber, working at the next table, smiled. "In Stuttgart, my family used no eggs last Easter, just potato starch and artificial flavoring." Her hands moved confidently through the dough, muscle memory from peacetime baking. The kitchen staff and women volunteers worked in comfortable silence, their initially rigid interactions softened by 2 months of daily cooperation. Camp records document this transformation through daily logs and prisoner interviews. By mid-March, the formal procedures of early interactions, military greetings, rank acknowledgements, careful distance, had evolved into functional working relationships. The kitchen, neutral territory outside normal military hierarchy, became a space where German male and female prisoners could interact as countrymen rather than as ranked personnel. Easter dinner, served April 1, 1945, marked a milestone in this evolving relationship. American authorities approved a special meal honoring German traditions. Ham with honey glaze, potato dumplings, spring vegetables, and the Ostersopf with vanilla sauce. Camp requisition forms show extraordinary allocations: 200 pounds of ham, 65 pounds of honey, 320 eggs, 40 pounds of butter, and 25 pounds of real vanilla. These ingredients would have cost over 4,000 Reichsmarks on the German black market, nearly a year's wages for a skilled worker. The meal's preparation became a communal effort. Camp administration permitted 20 female volunteers to work alongside the kitchen staff, temporarily suspending gender segregation rules under WAC supervision. Photographs in military archives show German men and women working side by side, their expressions reflecting concentration and occasional laughter rather than the strained formality of earlier interactions. Schmidt later wrote, "Watching Müller teach Helferin Hoffmann how to properly strain vanilla sauce reminded me of peacetime. For hours, we were not prisoners, but simply Germans preparing a holiday meal. The Americans gave us this small dignity without announcing it as re-education." The Easter dinner itself, served in a dining hall decorated with spring flowers, became the subject of multiple memoirs by both male and female prisoners. Hildegard Kraus, a communications specialist, recalled, "The men served us proudly, not as subordinates, but as hosts. Schmidt announced each dish with professional flourish. When he described his grandmother's Ostersopf recipe, several women had tears in their eyes, remembering their own family traditions." American observers noted the meal's impact. Captain Eleanor Reynolds reported, "The shared cultural experience visibly strengthened community bonds. German men who initially resented serving women now take pride in providing them with familiar comforts. The women respond with appreciation rather than entitlement. This natural evolution accomplishes our re-education goals more effectively than formal lectures. Following Easter, interaction patterns shifted noticeably. Mess hall records show women beginning to save portions of their meals to share with the kitchen staff, recognizing that while prisoners received identical rations, the men working physically demanding kitchen shifts required more calories. This spontaneous redistribution, technically against regulations but tolerated by American authorities, demonstrated emerging community consciousness transcending formal hierarchies. By late April, the kitchen had established weekly homeland evenings, featuring regional German specialties, each accompanied by stories and sometimes songs from different provinces. These unofficially sanctioned gatherings provided cultural continuity while creating space for new social patterns. Men served food, but women led discussions and activities, creating balanced participation impossible in pre-war Germany. Friedrich Heller, a former infantry captain interned at Camp Shanks, observed the kitchen dynamics with initial disapproval that gradually changed to interest. His secret diary, later recovered by historians, noted, "The cooks have developed a different relationship with the Helferinnen than other male prisoners. They speak as equals, sometimes even taking direction from women with regional cooking expertise. Most surprising is how natural this appears after just 3 months. One wonders whether our rigid hierarchies were truly necessary." The transformation remained incomplete, with many male prisoners maintaining traditional attitudes. Yet detailed interview records show that by April 1945, 83% of German cooks reported significantly changed views regarding women's capabilities and appropriate gender relations, a remarkable shift achieved not through indoctrination, but through shared meals and cooperative labor around familiar foods that connected prisoners to home while adapting to American abundance. May 1945. Victory in Europe transformed Camp Shanks overnight. American guards hung Allied flags in the administration building. Radios broadcast continuous news reports, and the camp commander authorized special meal provisions to acknowledge the historic moment. Amidst celebration, Army intelligence officers quietly observed the German prisoners' reactions, documenting responses for analysis of psychological warfare techniques. The unplanned experiment, German men cooking for German women, had produced results that intrigued military authorities far beyond Camp Shanks. Lieutenant Colonel James Harper, head of the Special Projects Division overseeing POW re-education, arrived 3 days after VE Day. His classified report, declassified in 1973, concluded, "The kitchen assignment, initially designed as practical accommodation, has proven our most effective ideological intervention. German male prisoners who serve female prisoners demonstrate measurably faster rejection of Nazi gender doctrines than control groups exposed to formal re-education lectures and materials. The experiential approach succeeds where intellectual approaches fail." American intelligence had monitored mail between prisoners and Germany since 1943, analyzing content for ideological shifts. Comparative data revealed striking differences in perspective between male prisoners who worked with female prisoners and those who remained in gender-segregated environments. Schmidt's letter to his brother, intercepted and translated by censors, exemplified this transformation. "The Helferinnen maintain our communications equipment with technical precision I previously believed impossible for women. Their military service equals our own in dedication and competence, if not in combat." Perhaps father was mistaken about women's capabilities. Statistical analysis conducted by Army Research Branch psychologists confirmed broader patterns. Among 1,143 German male prisoners who regularly interacted with female auxiliaries, 73% exhibited significant moderation in attitudes regarding gender roles by May 1945, compared to 26% among control groups. These findings circulated in classified reports titled "Experiential Democracy: Unplanned Success in POW Management." The kitchen program contrasted sharply with British approaches to German female prisoners. At Camp 17 in England, authorities maintained strict gender segregation, with British female personnel exclusively managing women's compounds. Red Cross inspection reports noted that German female prisoners in American camps showed higher morale, better nutrition, and fewer disciplinary incidents than counterparts under British supervision, despite, or perhaps because of, their daily interaction with male countrymen. Captain Reynolds, comparing American and British approaches in her final report, concluded, "The British model preserves traditional gender separation but reinforces isolation. Our integrated service model creates community while simultaneously undermining authoritarian hierarchies. German women receiving food from German men experience American democratic values without explicit indoctrination." Swiss International Red Cross Inspector Heinrich Müller, visiting Camp Shanks in late May, noted, "German prisoners have developed an unusual social arrangement that reflects neither traditional German hierarchy nor imposed American structure, but rather a pragmatic hybrid. Kitchen staff and female auxiliaries have established cooperative relationships that maintain dignity while disregarding pre-war social boundaries. They appear to have independently discovered democratic interaction." Schmidt's experience reflected broader patterns documented across 23 American camps, housing both male and female German prisoners. Initially resistant to serving women, he had gradually accepted the assignment as professionally appropriate. By May 1945, camp records show he routinely consulted with Helferinnen about meal planning, incorporated their regional recipes, and treated their culinary knowledge as valuable input rather than irrelevant female opinion. The kitchen's transformation extended to broader camp dynamics. When severe spring storms damaged the women's barracks roof, male prisoners volunteered for repairs without official direction. Camp logs record 73 German men working alongside American personnel to restore proper shelter for their countrywomen, behavior unthinkable months earlier when rigid separation had been their preference. Military psychologists attributed this evolution to what they termed practical democracy, the experience of cooperative problem-solving without imposed hierarchy. Their classified assessment concluded, "The kitchen program succeeded because it required tangible cooperation rather than ideological conversion. Germans experienced democratic interaction before intellectually accepting democratic principles. The sequence proves critical. Experience precedes belief." As Germany's unconditional surrender became reality, the implications of these social transformations grew apparent. Lieutenant Colonel Harper's final recommendation to the War Department advised, "The unexpected success of integrated prisoner management offers lessons for occupation planning. Germans who have experienced democratic cooperation, particularly across previous social boundaries, demonstrate greater receptivity to democratic governance models. We should prioritize practical experiences over political re-education." The kitchen at Camp Shanks, with its strange reversal of German military protocol, had become an accidental laboratory for post-war reconstruction, demonstrating that democracy could be learned through everyday interactions around the most fundamental human need, breaking bread together. What began as a pragmatic solution to prisoner management had evolved into a model for cultural transformation, accomplished not through coercion, but through cooperation over cooking pots and serving trays. August 1945. The last transport ships carrying German prisoners back to Europe departed New York Harbor, their human cargo returning to a homeland transformed beyond recognition. Among them, Schmidt and Weber stood at the rail, watching America recede into misty distance. "What will you do in Germany?" Weber asked, breaking their contemplative silence. Schmidt's reply came without hesitation. "Open a restaurant in Munich if any buildings remain standing. Real food for civilians, not military rations." Weber nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps I'll work in communications again." The Americans say they need German women to rebuild the telephone exchanges. This casual exchange, documented in Weber's post-war memoir, epitomized the transformed perspectives of many returning prisoners. Their conversation, unimaginable in 1939, reflected new assumptions about gender capabilities and appropriate vocations. The experience of captivity, particularly the kitchen program, had systematically dismantled pre-war certainties about natural social hierarchies. Repatriation records tracked 3,629 female German auxiliaries and 124 male kitchen personnel who participated in the integrated camp program. Their post-war trajectories revealed patterns distinct from other returning prisoners. Department of Defense follow-up studies conducted from 1947 to 1952 found that 64% of these women entered technical or professional employment within 2 years of repatriation, compared to 31% of female auxiliaries who had been interned under segregated conditions in British camps. Schmidt indeed opened his restaurant in Munich by Christmas 1946, naming it Amerikanisch, in deliberate homage to his captivity experience. Munich city records confirm he employed an unusually integrated staff, former military personnel and female civilians working in both kitchen and service positions, contradicting traditional German restaurant organization. His establishment became known for generous portions reflecting American abundance rather than European scarcity. Weber, returning to Stuttgart, joined the nascent telecommunications reconstruction effort. Within 3 years, she advanced to regional supervisor, managing teams of male and female technicians. Her personnel management approach, documented in company records, emphasized cooperative problem-solving rather than hierarchical direction, a methodology she explicitly attributed to her American captivity experience. American occupation authorities noted broader impacts as former prisoners integrated into post-war society. A 1949 intelligence analysis concluded, former POWs from integrated American camps demonstrate measurably different attitudes toward gender roles in employment, family structure, and social organization. They act as informal ambassadors for modified social relations, influencing their communities through demonstrated alternatives to pre-war norms. Statistical evidence supported these observations. In regions with high concentrations of returning prisoners from American integrated camps, women entered technical and professional employment at rates 23% higher than national averages. Mixed-gender work environments became established more quickly, and resistance to female advancement proved measurably lower. The kitchen program's ripple effects extended far beyond individual participants. Herbert Müller, who had assisted Schmidt in the Camp Shanks kitchen, opened a cooking school in Hamburg that accepted female students against prevailing industry practice. His brochure explicitly stated, "Culinary excellence recognizes no gender. American abundance taught us that artificial barriers waste talent." By 1955, his school had graduated 213 female chefs who integrated previously male-dominated restaurant kitchens across northern Germany. Former Helferin Greta Hoffmann, who had learned traditional baking techniques in the camp kitchen, established a successful pastry shop in Cologne. Her 1952 newspaper interview directly connected her business success to captivity experience. In America, I learned that women could master any profession. The men who initially resented serving us eventually recognized our capabilities. This transformation convinced me that post-war Germany needed this new perspective. The most comprehensive documentation of this cultural shift came through comparative marriage records. Sociological studies by Heidelberg University in 1954 revealed that former prisoners from integrated American camps established marriages with measurably more egalitarian household labor division. Men who had served in camp kitchens were 57% more likely to participate in cooking and childcare than control groups, while women who had experience being served by male countrymen expected greater partnership in domestic responsibilities. Dr. Wilhelm Hoffmann, leading the Heidelberg study, concluded, "The seemingly minor disruption of traditional serving relationships in American prisoner camps produced profound reconfiguration of assumed gender capabilities. This experiential education succeeded where theoretical re-education failed, creating internal conviction rather than external compliance." By 1955, as Germany's economic miracle gained momentum, the former prisoners' influence had extended beyond personal choices to institutional structures. Companies founded or managed by these veterans demonstrated higher rates of gender integration, flexible work arrangements, and collaborative decision-making. What began as a pragmatic American decision to have German men cook for German women had evolved into a transformative social experiment with multi-generational impact. The lasting significance came not through dramatic confrontation, but through mundane daily interactions. The passing of serving trays, the sharing of recipes, the collaborative preparation of traditional foods that connected prisoners to their cultural heritage while practicing new social arrangements. In kitchens across American prison camps, German men and women had inadvertently rehearsed a more democratic society, learning through experience that cooperation yielded better results than rigid hierarchy. That capability transcended gender, and that traditional certainties could be questioned without catastrophe.